It is evident that you were aware of the circumstances that led to my suspicions. I had always trusted you, but I was living with Jason. He was my friend and one of our closest companions. He had recently lost his wife, which led me to believe that you were involved in an intimate relationship with him. However, I was mistaken. I was merely providing emotional support to him, which he needed at the time. I was not engaging in sexual intercourse with him. I was merely holding his hand, hugging him, and providing physical contact to help him cope with his emotional distress. Furthermore, I was not aware that you were married to me at the time. He was devastated by the loss of his wife and was in need of support. He was your best friend, and I welcomed him into our home. However, I did not condone your actions. I believe that you should have been more aware of the consequences of your actions. Mistakes and right decisions are part of the human experience. It is important to recognize that both are necessary for growth and learning. In the case of the aforementioned individual, it is evident that a significant emotional investment was made. This emotional investment was not reciprocated, which resulted in a sense of betrayal and abandonment. It is understandable that the individual in question may have felt a sense of despair and distress. However, it is crucial to recognize that the individual's actions were not without consequence. It is also important to acknowledge that the individual in question may have been attempting to provide support and comfort. However, the manner in which this was conveyed may have been misguided and inappropriate. It is essential to recognize that the individual's actions were not without consequence. The individual, I am not leaving this house. I am unable to provide an explanation for my actions if I am not present. You have already provided an explanation for your actions, now I must decide how to proceed. Therefore, I require you to leave this house, or I will be forced to take action. Patrick, you are overreacting. There is no justification for your actions. To be upset about a good friend who was in need was understandable. All I did was help him through tough times by sleeping with him. I did not say that he was hurting, I merely tried to ease his suffering. I slept with him, and I did everything I could to help. I am not trying to belittle this, I am merely trying to explain my actions. I did something good, and you are trying to belittle it. I am going out to grab a She Bit Me, and when I returned an hour later, she was gone. I entered our domicile from the garage and discovered her seated at the kitchen table. Have you sufficiently gratified your inflated ego? Are you prepared to engage in a rational discourse? I regarded her with a hostile expression and proceeded upstairs to our bedroom. Where I observed that she had not made any effort to pack any bags or even gather her things together. I considered this to be an acceptable course of action, given that she was not intending to leave. I therefore decided that I would not remain in the house for a minute longer than necessary. I proceeded to the attic and retrieved 3 suitcases, which I proceeded to fill. I proceeded to stuff clothes into the suitcases, attempting to be both expeditious and meticulous. I was nearly finished when Marlene approached me. "What are you doing, Patrick?" she inquired, using my full name. "I'm packing," I replied. "Using my full name?" she asked, her tone indicating confusion. "Yes," I said. "I'm packing." "But you're not sleeping with our friend for 3 weeks," she countered. "I'm not sleeping with her," I said. "I'm packing." "But you're the one behaving badly," she said. "I'm not behaving badly," I said. "I'm packing." "What's not clear?" she asked. "Since you don't," I said. I was eager to leave, but she urged me to stay. We needed to work through this together. I gathered the last of the clothes that would fit and went into the main bathroom to gather my toiletries. "Patrick," I implored, "please stop acting so absurdly. Stop acting like a spoiled child. Nobody stole your toys." "No," I replied, "you gave that, much more than my, toys. I love you, Pat, you know that, but I don't belong to you. Jason needed someone to share his grief, and I was there. He's our friend, and that means nothing to us, to our marriage. He'll never be my friend again, and that means everything. The dissolution of our marriage was inevitable." I hastily packed the last bag and grabbed 2 suitcases, which I placed in the trunk of my car. Marlene followed me down the stairs, talking throughout the process. "Please stop this nonsense," she said. I see your pride is hurt, but it was really nothing. I was just helping a friend. He's one of your. Jason was my best friend. He is now deceased to me, just as his late wife Sarah was. She was similarly deceased to me. I have known Jason since we were 12 years old, when his family moved in next door to ours. He was an old friend and one of the 3 guys I usually relied on in any situation. However, this betrayal put an end to everything. The end of everything was at hand. Patty, please slow down. Talk to me. Let me explain. She followed me into the office, where I was clearing off my desk. She leaned against hers on the opposite wall. You've already made it pretty clear that there's nothing more to explain. He was sad. You slept with him. I'm leaving you. Please. Patty, I implore you to reconsider. We have always been able to resolve our differences through discussion. We are planning to start a family and have so much ahead of us. There is no need for this unnecessary drama. Everything will be okay. You will see. You love me, and I love you. My feelings for you have not changed at all. I closed my backpack and looked at her directly. The eyes, but my feelings for you have changed. Goodbye, Marlene. My lawyer will be in touch. The residual energy persisted, yet it was insufficient to assuage my distress. After showering and deleting Marlene's messages from my phone, I checked into a motel near my workplace. I was not concerned about unwanted visitors, but my phone continued to buzz. Consequently, a couple of hours later, I finally blocked Marlene's number. My initial sense of relief was short-lived. Subsequently, I received calls from my parents and sister, which initiated these discussions. They were relatively brief. Patty, Marlene called and said you left her. Did she tell you why? No, you just seemed upset. She said you know every marriage has its rough patches. Patty, you need to stick together and work through them. She slept with Jason for 3 weeks. What did she do that for to help him overcome his grief? That doesn't make sense. Are you sure she told me? Oh, you must have. I must have misheard this. It is simply a misunderstanding, which you need to resolve with her. She is your wife. Dear, goodbye. Bye, Mom. I had a similar conversation with Carrie. Apparently, Marlene's infidelity was my problem, not hers. At least, that is what my family believes. I must have missed the part of Florence Nightingale's story where she slept with all her patients to restore their health. I purchased a sandwich and salad, which I ate in my motel room while watching the game. I could not discern whether there was a problem. At one point, my phone rang. It was Jason, off, who had called. I informed him that I would never speak to him again. I declined the call before he could say a word. I also blocked his number. The following day was not much better. Marlene was using friends' phones, so I began blocking those numbers when she used them. I deleted voicemails as soon as I heard they were from her or from friends calling on her behalf. Her messages showed her growing disappointment. Dear Patty. Please return home and engage in a conversation with me. I am concerned about your well-being. There is no particular reason to be worried, but I would like to discuss the matter further. Please call me. I am unable to reach you by phone or text message. The time between our communications is increasing. This could be due to 2 possibilities: either you are experiencing difficulty in contacting me or you have realized that I am not going to respond. I watched the game and I cannot recall what I ate or if I ate at all. I remember stepping outside to get some fresh air. The weather was overcast with intermittent precipitation, so I did not remain outdoors for an extended period on Monday. The day proceeded as scheduled, and I proceeded to my place of employment. My duties included processing insurance claims, which, while not particularly engaging, are essential to the functioning of the organization. My performance is commensurate with the expectations set forth in my reviews, which indicate that I am proficient in this area. Additionally, the compensation is satisfactory. Upon my arrival at the office, I informed my supervisor of the dissolution of my relationship with Marlene. I requested time during the day to address the resulting logistical challenges. My supervisor granted my request, but he also expected me to remain late to complete outstanding tasks. I was amenable to this arrangement. I was then required to perform an additional task. Marlene called 10 minutes after ISAT had been terminated at my desk. I was aware of the number, but I was obliged to answer calls as part of my job. I was aware that she was relentless when it came to using the phone. "What do you want, Marlene?" "Thank God, Patty, please come back home. I love you and I miss you so much. We need to talk." "No, we don't. You've said all I needed to hear on this matter. You just don't understand." "It didn't mean anything. I really do understand." "That's. If you have already made your position clear, and I believe I have done the same, then perhaps we should move on. Thank you for your understanding. I am pleased to hear that you are happy with my position. What time will you be home tonight?" "I have everything ready to make lasagna. Could you pick up a bottle of good wine on your way home?" "I am not coming home tonight, Marlene. When I say, let's move on, I mean that I do not want to divorce you. Infidelity is a deal-breaker for me. I love you and I know you love me. Please come home so we can talk." "Please," I could hear her crying. "There is nothing for us to discuss. Marlene, it is as simple as it can be. We have opposing views on the central issue of our marriage. Now, I need to get back to work. You know how she feels about personal calls at work. Do not hang up. We need to talk. If you hang up, I will call right back. I will keep calling until you agree to meet me to settle this." She had leverage here. Therefore, I agreed. "I will not be going home. We will meet at Julie's at 6 o'clock. I would like to express my gratitude to Patty for her assistance. I am grateful for her support and love. I will see her soon." The remainder of my workday was unproductive. I went to the bank to split our joint accounts. I called our credit cards but was unable to close them until we settled them. I requested that the credit limits be lowered. I also contacted HR to change the beneficiaries on my insurance policy and 401k account. We will have to address these matters. After we were married, the house was mine, but Marlene had made a significant contribution to the mortgage payments. Fortunately, we did not have children to worry about. I was careful and took enough time to leave work and be at Julie at the appointed time. I saw Marlene's car and was not concerned. I do not believe in the myth of gaining the upper hand and controlling the situation. In the heat of battle, it is prudent to be straightforward and accept the consequences of one's actions. I located her with relative ease and sat across from her without a greeting. Marlene smiled at me, but her expression was somewhat uncertain. "Hello, honey," she said. "I'm glad you decided to come. I want to put all this behind us so you can come back home." I remained silent, my gaze fixed on her. Her smile faltered. Although she was somewhat hurt, she was still in the game. "I am sorry that you are hurt, but I assure you that it was nothing. I do not love Jason, he needed me, and I was there for him as a friend. I was there for him as a friend who slept for 3 weeks. Please stop, Patty. This really isn't helping our situation. I am the first guy in history who got cuckolded by a Moor. You are a pitiful man. You are aware of my feelings on this matter. You are not pathetic. I love you. I miss you. I need you. Please return home. You engaged in sexual intercourse with Jason for a period of 3 weeks. Perhaps you should request his return. I do not love Jason, but you did this with him for 3 weeks. She clenched her teeth tightly. Please cease this display of distress. I am aware of the pain you are experiencing. I assumed you loved me and Jason enough to understand that your actions were motivated by kindness, not passion or love. I was merely providing comfort to him. You were with him for 3 weeks. Is that all you are going to say? I am attempting to explain my actions. To elucidate the circumstances, you are exhibiting a lack of flexibility in your thinking. If this interaction held no significance, why did you engage in it? Marlene, if this interaction held no significance, why did you engage in it? I am aware that you believe this was an inappropriate action. I am not defending myself. I can see the pain in your eyes. I have caused you distress, and I am sorry. I was merely attempting to show compassion. I thought I had assumed that you would understand, but perhaps we should leave this incident in the past. Perhaps we can return to the way things were before. If you would give me a chance, I would be willing to prove to you that I am capable of changing. I would do everything in my power to make it up to you. However, it seems that it is too late for that. There are some things that cannot be undone. Marlene attempted to grasp my hand, but I pulled away. Her disappointment was evident in the sharp intake of breath. Patty, please elucidate the optimal course of action. We must rectify this situation. Sign the documents when served. She did not sign the documents. Instead, she filed a counterclaim, contesting the entirety of my petition and requesting relationship counseling. I resisted, but the judge ruled in favor of. On Tuesday evening, I accompanied Marlene to a session with Joanna Dillow, MFT. I inquired as to the objective of the session. In response, Marlene stated that she wished to expedite the divorce proceedings. It became evident that she was not interested in salvaging the marriage. She asserted that the marriage was no longer viable, as it had been violated and rendered null and void. We must simply make it official, Marlene. I understand that your objective differs from mine. Marlene was already in tears. I simply want this nightmare to end. I want Patty to return to our home, where he belongs. I want my husband to return to our home and our bed. I miss him so much. I understand that the issue is that you engaged in a romantic relationship with your friend for a period of 3 weeks while he was in the process of mourning the loss of his wife. Is that an accurate representation of the circumstances? Yes, Patty and I attended the funeral, and I took the opportunity to provide some additional assistance to Jason with various domestic tasks. Patty was required to leave due to her work obligations. Jason was experiencing a profound sense of distress and despondency. I began to provide him with physical support and emotional comfort during his period of grief. However, it did not take long for him to begin clinging to me and kissing me. A couple of days later, we slept together. However, it was merely a display of kindness towards a good friend who was experiencing significant distress. It is surprising that this incident was not discussed with Patrick. I did, in fact, discuss it with him as soon as I returned from St. Louis. I informed him of the circumstances and anticipated his response. I presumed he would comprehend the situation. Jason has been Patty's friend since their childhood. He observed Jason's distress at the funeral. I assumed Patty would recognize that I was merely assisting Jason in managing his grief. Marlene sniffed and wiped her nose. It was merely an act of love, and it held no significance. Patrick, however, perceives it differently. Do you wish to elaborate on your feelings? An act of love should be the sole entity between two individuals and should belong exclusively to them. This is the only way to ascertain that one is fully committed to the other. Nevertheless, I have informed you that I do not love anyone else since the day we met. We met, and my heart has belonged only to you. Prove it. What do you mean, prove it? You know it's true. How do I know you love me? I tell you every day. Words come easy. Actions show the truth. I do 100 things with love for you every day. I cook dinner for you. I kiss you all the time. Listen to everything you say to me. I make love to you. You cook dinner for our friends and family. You kiss your parents and my parents. You listen to everything your sister says to you. You slept with Jason. Therefore, tell me what you do for me alone. Do not be ridiculous. It is different with you. How do I know this? Fidelity was the only thing we had, and it was meant only for each other. You threw that away for Jason. Now, there's nothing that belongs just to us. That is not true. We have our love. I do not love Jason. I do not love anyone the way I love you. However, you cannot prove that to me. Furthermore, the way you just casually dismissed our promises to each other shows that I can't trust you in my heart. Therefore, we are done. Your dismissal of our promises to each other demonstrates that I cannot trust you. Therefore, we have reached the conclusion of our relationship. Please refrain from reiterating that you do not comprehend my perspective. I believe that we have reached the limit of our compatibility at this point in time. Joanna politely but firmly requested that I spend the remainder of today's session alone with Patrick. She suggested that we reconvene at 4 o'clock. At 10 a.m. on Thursday, Marlene, that's our next session, and then we'll have an hour to work together. Marlene left crying. I felt very awkward being alone with the therapist. Is there any way you can reconsider the divorce? No, that's quite definitive, so there are no mitigating circumstances. If she had been drugged, that would be a whole different story. I would have given her everything I had, then killed the person who did it. I don't know if I could forgive that, but at least maybe there would be in retrospect. She consciously chose to engage in sexual intercourse with Jason for a period of 3 weeks, spending each night in his bed as if she were his wife. This act constitutes a profound betrayal that I will never be able to overcome. Therefore, she could have simply been with Jason. She could have engaged in sexual intercourse with him, but only with you. How can you distinguish between these two scenarios? I am unsure if I can discern the difference. I am aware of my own feelings, but I am unaware of yours or anyone else's, except for what I observe. I paused. Do you know how to determine the importance of commitments? One might posit that the decision to remain in a monogamous relationship hinges on the potential sacrifices involved. The commitment to remain with a single partner for an extended period, such as 50 or 60 years, entails significant personal sacrifices. These include the willingness to forego other romantic relationships, which can lead to feelings of boredom, misunderstanding, illness, mood swings, conflicts, and other challenges that can test the limits of one's commitment. The decision to prioritize a monogamous relationship over other romantic options is a clear demonstration of one's dedication to their partner. It is a way of measuring the depth of one's love and commitment to the relationship. It is a testament to the willingness to make significant personal sacrifices for the sake of the relationship. Marlene's decision to engage in sexual intercourse with Jason demonstrated her lack of willingness to make the aforementioned sacrifice. It is evident that she was not prepared to make any significant sacrifice to rectify the situation. Had I remained married to her, I would have been compelled to defend against such betrayal on a daily basis. This is not the type of marriage I aspire to, and therefore, there is no possibility of reconciliation. While it is true that individuals can make mistakes, an act does not define a person's character. However, a mistake is a single occurrence, whereas a pattern of behavior suggests a deeper issue. A slip-up is a single action, it is not a repeated action. There is no coming back from this. Therefore, I will need to prepare Marlene for the divorce. There is no point in wasting time if one is not open to reconciliation. I was not needed on Thursday, and I understand your feelings and see how strong you are. While these feelings may persist, if you change your mind, I am willing to work with you again, either alone or with Marlene. I have not changed my mind. In fact, Marlene was inconsolable every time I saw her. I stopped attending meetings with our lawyers because she would start crying as soon as she saw me. I did not like seeing her in pain, but I was hurting too. Initially, I was consumed by rage. However, furthermore, I became desensitized to the point of numbness when I obtained my own apartment and established a new routine. Returning home felt so exhausting that I frequently stayed late at work, to the extent that my colleagues expressed annoyance at the extensive documentation I produced, which made them appear less efficient. I missed Marlene's presence, as her absence was palpable. I became accustomed to the pain that gripped me. I lay in bed, pondering whether I had made the right choice. I missed her because I truly loved her. She was kind, generous, and smart, and she always made me laugh. She was playful and sincere in bed, but she had casually decided to sleep with my friend, and I just knew I could never fully trust her with the protection of my heart again. She did not love me, at least not in the way I needed. The notion that I was insecure or stubborn is, of course, open to debate. However, it is clear that a marriage should be a safe haven, a place where stresses are alleviated, not concentrated. The realization that she had slept with Jason, despite my knowledge of this, caused me intense stress. The year following our divorce was, as a result, a difficult one. Marlene may have been inconsolable, but I felt crushed too. I barely went anywhere, despite the efforts I saw my friends and colleagues infrequently, as they were reluctant to pass judgment on Marlene's actions. Consequently, I was unable to receive much support from them. I spent much of my time in my apartment, watching sports competitions and visiting XXX sites when the tension became unbearable. I sought a different kind of release. I experienced a sense of release when Jason tracked me down with the intention of apologizing. He waited for me when I returned home late from work, ensuring that there was no one around. He began by saying, "Hey buddy, I want to clear the air." However, before he could finish his sentence, I struck him with my fist, connecting with his ear. We were approximately the same height, and neither of us had much experience in fights. However, I was fueled by rage, and I proceeded to beat him. I departed the area with 2 black eyes, a broken nose, a swollen jaw, and several bruises across my opponent's body. It is possible that I struck him in the genitals with my knee, though the impact was not clean. After that, I made a couple of trips to St. Louis. Jason had always been a car enthusiast. He was unfortunate to have his M3 completely wrecked while he was at it. On a Monday night, I was at a bar watching football. All the windows and mirrors were smashed, the paint was deeply scratched from nose to tail, the body was heavily dented, the tires SL flashed, and the interior was spray-painted bright red. His insurance covered most of the damage, and he used the payout to buy a used Porsche. Unfortunately for him, approximately 4 months later, an individual smashed the driver's side window and threw a Molotov cocktail into it when the car alarm went off. It was prohibitively expensive for him to repair the damage. No one was looking for me, but even if they had been, my credit cards had receipts from bars near my apartment. As for revenge, it was insufficient. It was a modest satisfaction, but prison did not appeal to me in the end. Jason had to live on the remnants of his former life. I did not see Marlene after the divorce, and I did not allow anyone to tell me about her. She had deeply wounded me. Nevertheless, I hoped she would find someone with whom she could share her life. We shared many commonalities, yet there was a significant divergence in our perspectives on marriage. When I began dating again, I anticipated disappointment and therefore did not risk my heart. I was ultimately unsuccessful with multiple romantic partners. I eventually came to recognize that I was destined to remain alone unless I could muster the courage to trust again. To trust someone again, I decided to demonstrate good intentions and discuss my experience with Marlene and my expectations for any future relationship. Additionally, I recognized the need to improve my physical fitness, so I joined a mountain biking club on weekends. On my first day with them, I also had the opportunity to meet Pry, who was tall and slender. With long, thick black hair, we were quite far behind the others, so we spent most of the ride together talking as we caught our breath. She was lively and witty, and I laughed frequently when we loaded our bikes at the end of the trip. I was moving rather slowly, and she seemed to linger as well. I recognize that this is a last-minute request, but I felt compelled to make it. My heartbeat accelerated, yet if you are available this evening, would be grateful if you could join me for dinner. Her smile was radiant. Indeed, I would be delighted to accept your invitation. Could you suggest a suitable venue? I am flexible. Perhaps something informal? What is your preferred cuisine? Italian is a popular choice, but I am particularly fond of it. We exchanged contact details and proceeded on our respective ways. To refresh ourselves, I collected her at 6 o'clock, and we spent a pleasant, unassuming evening together. I received a warm embrace and a brief kiss, which was more than I anticipated, and I returned home in a contented state. After that, we began seeing each other on a regular basis. I was forthcoming with her about my separation from Marlene, and I learned that we had both been in relationships that had soured due to infidelity on 2 previous occasions. As a result, we were both somewhat reserved. We did not engage in any form of physical intimacy for a period of 4 months. On that occasion, we were both naked and partially undressed, having just enjoyed a period of mutual pleasure. I then pulled back and kissed her, looking into her eyes, which were shining with a dark lust. I asked her whether she was willing to take the relationship further. The initial step was to establish exclusivity in the relationship. I initiated this by kissing her, and she reciprocated. I found this to be an appealing aspect of the relationship. She was an enthusiastic lover, passionate and vocal. After 4 months, we moved in together. During this time, I found her to be warm, generous, and down-to-earth. I was straightforward and honest in my communication. She was organized but flexible enough, and I was able to comprehend her perspective well. We were highly compatible, yet distinct enough to maintain a sense of variety in our relationship. In addition to our shared interests in biking and Italian food, we also enjoyed watching action movies. However, I was unfamiliar with her quilting hobby, and my passion for curling initially seemed incomprehensible to her. We both engaged in watching. I was more inclined to support the athletes, whereas she favored the actresses. I endeavored to be transparent about my thoughts and actions, taking each step with great care. Priya reciprocated in kind, and we never had any significant disagreements. Disputes were resolved before they escalated into issues. Our close relationship was built on mutual trust. Absolute transparency and openness fostered trust, which in turn enabled us to communicate effectively. On occasion, I found myself regretting not communicating more effectively during my marriage to Marlene. This regret may have contributed to the failure of our marriage, but I also recognized that I was not entirely blameless. I assumed that we shared the same expectations regarding monogamy, but perhaps we did not. She shared this belief. We were caught off guard by the situation, and I wonder if we could have avoided all this unpleasant history if we had talked earlier. However, we did not, and as a result, we caused each other pain, which we will both have to live with in the future. This experience made me, I believe, a much better partner for PRA. Ultimately, this experience led us to the altar and to a completely fulfilling marriage. Our son, Siddharth, was born 3 years after we got married, and almost 2 years later, our daughter, Fia, was born. As an Indian-Irish mix is not a common occurrence, we are quite unique. The first rule of our marriage is that fidelity is of the utmost importance.